Hi everyone. So today we're taking a look at Total War Warhammer. That fusion between one of the greatest real-time strategy games and one of the greatest tabletop games that we've been almost waiting 20 years for. Certainly it feels that way to me. Now, if you're not familiar with either Total War games or the Warhammer games, let me quickly break this down for you. In Total War, the computer games, you take on the role of a kingdom or a nation. In these games, you will have both turn-based campaign maps to deal with and real-time battles. With Warhammer, you're looking at one of the oldest fantasy franchises in existence. For over 30 years, it's been producing tabletop miniatures and dice-based games that people all over the world love. It's all high fantasy, with lots of orcs, goblins, elves, chaos, and of course those puny humans. But what have they achieved when they tried to bring these two incredibly well-known franchises together? Well, simply nothing short of pure excellence. I've been very critical of the Total War games over the last few years. Rome 2 and Attila were not great releases, buggy at launch and never really reaching the heights that many of the other Total War games has achieved. The Warhammer franchise itself has struggled at times, and so trying to bring these two together was not necessarily a slam dunk. There was an awful lot that could go horribly wrong. So what do we actually get in our game, as it were? Well, we get 5 main factions. The Empire, those puny humans, the Dwarves, the Orcs and Goblins, otherwise known as the Greenskins, the Vampire Counts, and the Chaos faction. Now essentially this breaks down into 2 good races, 2 evil races, and the Chaos race that are just going to destroy absolutely everything they come into contact with. As I say, Total War games are really a game of 2 halves. There are those turn-based strategy moments where you will have to, almost like a game of chess, build up your cities, your fortifications and your armies and go conquering. Each turn advances play across the map for everybody, not only your own faction. That means people can declare war on you, attack your cities, or even go after your various armies to destroy them. Likewise, you will have to plan ahead. Resource balancing at this point is absolutely essential, as is learning when to strike and when to wait. Diplomacy plays a big part this time round. It really does feel like diplomacy weighs on this game in all the right ways, something previous Total War games just haven't got right. Factions are blocked from being able to form particular types of diplomatic alliances with each other, really working within the racial factions there. So for in other words, people who are absolutely opposed to one another, orcs and goblins and humans, are not really going to form a military alliance, or at least not without a great deal of effort anyway. But likewise, humans and dwarves are natural bedfellows, as it were, and so getting those alliances up and running is a very easy prospect. Now there's also a ton of minor factions here. Just within the Empire yourself, whilst you play Karl Franz's core Empire faction, as it were, there are then the rest of the Empire factions spread around you, Tabletland, Middenheim, Weiss and so on. You also are bordered by the Dwarves and the Bretonnian Empire. All of this just makes the campaign map feel incredibly alive. It's like falling into those glorious, gorgeous maps Games Workshop used to produce all those years ago in the front of the army books. It makes you feel like you've stepped into this living, breathing Warhammer world, something we've been dreaming of since our teens. Over 30 years of promise finally delivered in what just feels to me like a spectacular rendition of the Warhammer world. But as with all games based on the Warhammer license, it really does come down to combat. And in Total War games, that means going real time. You will control your entire army. Those armies you've been building up on the campaign map and moving around, now it's your time to fight with them. Now the models here are beautiful renditions of the Games Workshop figurines. They look literally like you could have plucked them off a store shelf, assembled them and painted them. Except here, they are beautifully animated. Musket fire, feels thick and voluminous, crossbow bolts fly through the air with the greatest of ease, and Karl Franz lands on Deathclaw in the middle of a pack of orcs and just wipes them all out. It's glorious stuff. It doesn't really matter which faction you choose, everything here has been very well crafted. These feel like Games Workshop models brought to life, and that is one of the best things we can say about a Total War Warhammer game. It feels right. Now, I do still have some problems with the way that Creative Ensemble have handled combat again here in this Total War game. Essentially, this is just Rome 2's mechanics. There are still no flipping formations. Why they got rid of formations is beyond me. It does make this a bit of a click fest. Essentially, rapid fire clicking to queue up units to attack particular units, reposition and so on. It makes it a bit more actiony, but it does tend to get rid of a lot of the strategy here, I'm afraid. At least in my mind, most games end up as the blob. We all know it. Your units have charged against one another, all hell has broken loose, and suddenly you scroll out and you realise, oh, everything's just a great big messy blob. The lines, those beautiful battle lines you spent so long setting up at the beginning, have disintegrated into a mass of units poking each other with sticks. Sadly, that is one of the only things that for me feels a little bit like an immersion breaker. I really wanted to see those standard unit lines we achieved so nicely in the tabletop actually coming to fruition here within the game. It just didn't quite feel right to me. Now, this doesn't detract from the actual gameplay itself, which works incredibly well. Don't get me wrong, I'm nitpicking really here about that translation between the Warhammer tabletop and the actual game aesthetics, how these units interact and move and fight against each other. Just doesn't quite have that right vibe there. But as a Total War game, as a work of computer gaming, it does hold up exceptionally well. In fact, it's probably the best Total War game we've had to date, purely because of the meatiness of these units, the variety of these units, as they kind of slam into one another, as those flying units come charging down out of the sky, sending models scattering everywhere around you. It just feels amazing. And then, of course, when you bring out those heavy weaponry, those brilliant war machines from the Warhammer world, and suddenly you kind of see the chaos of the Warhammer world brought to life in this game. It's not just about a cannon, it's about a Hellblaster volley gun. It's not just about some cavalry, it's about a steam tank charge. And all of these things are modelled in such a way that it has weight and it feels right. Now, there's an awful lot more here to kind of explore. One of the only things that I think is maybe a slight downside here is we are missing quite a few races. There's no Wood Elves, there's no High Elves, there's no Skaven here, there's no Lizard Men. We're also really missing the undead nation, as it were. Sure, we've got the vampire counts, but for me, the vampire counts were never really that interesting. Somebody please bring me Nagash. Please, I really want to stomp around a battlefield with Nagash. That would be absolutely awesome. Now, DLC is probably going to add in a lot of these other races, as well as expanding what are minor races at the moment. For instance, the Bretonnian units are available in multiplayer, but are not particularly well fleshed out. In fact, they're pretty borderline, really. But at least they are present. Now, when we start looking at some of the other content we have available here, multiplayer is obviously going to be a big draw for a lot of people. Based on how you set up your particular multiplayer match, each team is assigned points. Those points are then used to purchase the various units you're going to take into that multiplayer game. At that point, sit back and have some fun. You won't have to worry about turn-based campaign maps. This is purely a deathmatch, as it were. Your army versus your opponent's army, who can build the best and who can command it the best as well. Now, if you're someone who happens to like the kind of multiplayer campaign aspect, turn-based, don't worry, that's covered as well. They haven't left it out, so you can play with another friend in a big turn-based campaign, as it were. All good fun. Now, by and large, I honestly believe this is one of those Total War games we will be talking about in 5 years' time for its sheer quality. As more DLC is released and the game expands, I fully expect this to be one of those games we keep coming back to, purely because the quality is actually very high. If I was going to give this a marks out of 10, I would certainly give it around a 9. The things to grumble about are minor and could certainly be patched or fixed with DLC over time. At the end of the day, this is the best recreation of the Warhammer world we have ever had in a computer game. And it just feels right. It is the perfect marriage between one of the greatest strategy franchises of all time with the greatest tabletop franchise of all time. And it works. If you're still sitting on the fence about Total War Warhammer, here is what I would say. Go and buy it. If you like strategy games, if you love the Warhammer license and you want to see it treated properly and faithfully, it has been done here, and it has been done beautifully well. Now, if you don't mind, I'm off to go and round up a few giants and go crush Altdorf.